What is up, you guys? I'm Charmx, and today I'm going to be reacting to 5 most mysterious and unexplained oceanic mysteries. Now, this is my top 5s, makes really cool videos, and normally top 5s sticks to like spooky type videos, so this is unique, I think, just in terms of content from top 5s, because this is not a spooky video. Well, it's a mystery video, but it's not like a paranormal video, so I don't know. But hope this will be quite interesting. The original link's in the description. Make sure you guys go subscribe to top 5s. It's actually been a while since I've reacted to a top 5 video. I've been really focusing on like reacting to nuke top 5s videos, but we're back to top 5s. Hopefully this will be awesome. The original link's in the description. And let's begin.
We've all heard of the bloop, the fact the ocean is 95% unexplored, Megalodon, and all the other ocean mysteries that make us
it's hard to believe the ocean's still 95% unexplored.
Realize how much of a fascinating place the ocean really is. But given its size, there are thousands of mysteries that are still unexplained. And since we started this channel way back in the day, we've been looking into many of those mysteries. So from a cursed ghost ship, sea serpents, the fascinating mysteries of the blue whales that we are no further to explaining than we were years before, to the mysterious disappearance of the Casey Nicole crew. Here are 5 unbelievable ocean mysteries that we are still no closer to solving. Hit those lights, sit back, and enjoy.
I like this. This is a nice change from, paranormal videos.
The disappearing crew of the Casey Nicole. Just after midnight on April 11th, 1990, Nathan Neesmith, age 32, his brother Billy Joe, 23, his nephew, 18-year-old Keith Wilkes, and their friend, 23-year-old Franklin Brantley, boarded a boat named Casey Nicole and set off from a McIntosh County pier in Georgia on a 7-day commercial fishing trip. It was the first outing for the 34-foot boat since it had undergone extensive maintenance work. Around 3:30 a.m. the next morning, Nathan was at the helm of the boat steering it towards a reef so they could start fishing, when he realized there was something wrong with the vessel. She was heavy to maneuver and was plowing through the waves rather than going over them. Nathan alerted the others who were sleeping.
Was it leaking or something like that? So there's water in the hull?
And further investigation showed that not only was there a mechanical issue with the boat, but it was also taking on a lot of water.
It was? Oh my goodness. Yeah, that's terrifying.
And the cabin was rapidly filling. When they tried the bilge pumps, they were not working, so all 4 men attempted to scoop out the water using buckets. When this
That's terrifying. And are they in the middle of nowhere doing this? The pumps aren't working to get the water out? Oh goodness, that's a recipe for disaster.
Failed, they sent out a mayday over the radio, but received no response. Eventually, they decided to abandon ship, and with their life jackets on, they launched the inflatable lifeboat. But it was soon apparent there was a problem with the raft. Not only did it have a hole in it,
and there was a problem with the raft? Oh my goodness.
But it was for 2 people, and there were 4 of them. The men had no choice but to stay with the raft, with 2 hanging off the side and 2 inside.
Did the boat completely sink?
But it was sinking fast. To try and keep it buoyant, they attached a hatch cover that was floating by. The 4 men clung to the cover in the hope that they would be seen by a passing boat. As it got light, they could see the Casey Nicole still half afloat in the distance, so Nathan, despite protests from the others, took the decision to swim to the stricken vessel to see if he could salvage anything and summons help. Now, this is where it gets...
First off, they should have stayed with the Casey Nicole. They should have stayed relatively close to it because, it's a lot easier to see a boat in the water than it is to see people on a raft because you're a lot lower. So they should have stuck really close to the boat, but it sounds as if they did not. Also, if your life raft is sinking, why would you... I don't know.
It's a bit murky. Nathan claims that the Casey Nicole was about 3 miles away.
3 miles? And this one person decided to go swim to it? 3 miles? No.
And it took him around 7 hours to reach her.
You actually reached it. That's impressive. It's 7 hours.
And when he got there, it was dark, so he clung to her hull and waited until the next morning. He then claims he noticed a freighter in the area close to where the other 3 men were. He said the freighter was acting oddly and appeared to be going around in circles, stopping several times. This gave Nathan the impression that it was picking up his brother and the other 2 crew members. However, oddly, they didn't attempt to rescue him. Nathan claims he clung to the Casey Nicole until eventually he spotted a large bait box. He figured it was more stable than the upturned hull, and he clambered into it. He stayed in the box floating in the ocean for
What does this box look like? Because this, what does this picture have to do with the box? It looks like another sinking ship.
3 days, clinging to life, and was finally rescued on April 16th, 1990.
3 days?
He was starved, dehydrated, and in a bad way. He was taken to hospital, where he claims he heard voices whilst he was floating in the sea, and that's what kept him going. He was also shocked to learn that the 3 others hadn't been rescued, as he assumed they'd been picked up by the freighter. When it was realised there were still 3 crew members missing, a search party was sent out, but despite their extensive efforts, they were never found. Since the incident, speculation has been rife, in particular around Nathan's version of the events.
Wait, do people suspect Nathan of like doing something to hurt the people or something like that?
And theories about what happened to the missing men are mixed. Some say Nathan's story is suspicious. After all, it does seem strange to abandon the others and swim for over 7 hours to reach a sinking boat hull.
Yeah, that doesn't make sense. It really doesn't make sense why that person did that. Then again, if your raft was sinking, and then you know that the boat isn't sinking, or it's not fully sinking, then there might be, it does kind of make sense. But I don't think it makes sense why they left the Casey anyway. They should have stayed near it.
Others think the freighter story is far-fetched, and many speculate that Nathan is directly involved somehow. Some believe the 4 men may have been a part of a drug trafficking ring, but something went horribly wrong. Or that the freighter was part of drug trafficking, and the crew took the men prisoner or killed them to keep them quiet. The men's family are convinced the 3 were taken prisoner by the crew of the freighter.
That's possible. That's very possible that they were taken captive.
And have been held in a foreign country, possibly Cuba, ever since. However, there is a strange twist to this mystery. In the weeks after the incident, Nathan's sister, Anenda, received a strange phone call from a man who spoke Spanish and seemed unable to understand English. The man just kept repeating Anna's phone number and saying her name before cutting off.
That's weird.
One day, an unusual call also came through to Doug Tyson, the owner of the Casey Nicole. Once again, the caller was a Spanish man, and according to Tyson, the only English word he knew was his name and his telephone number. Over the next year, 5 more calls came in, 3 to Anenda and 2 to Tyson. The last call was to Anenda on March the 6th, 1991. The caller spoke a single sentence in English: "I'm bringing him home."
Oh, that's really weird. Well, apparently they didn't bring him home.
There have been no more calls. The family and Doug believe that this man was referring to 1 or more of the missing men, and they still hold out hope that they are alive somewhere. So what really happened to the lost crewmen of the Casey Nicole? Officially, Billy Joe Neesmith, Keith Wilkes, and Franklin Brantley are now presumed dead, but unofficially, it's entirely possible they may still be alive. What's your thoughts on this one?
It was an interesting mystery, that's for sure. I don't know. It's weird that the guy just swam for 7 hours back to the boat. But it's also weird that they left the boat to begin with. Like, I understand that you might want to get on the life raft, but why, like, leave the boat's vicinity, right? Like, you'd want to be close to the boat, because if someone nearby sees the boat and it's capsized over, they're most likely going to come to check it out. And if you're right nearby, then it's a lot easier to get rescued that way.
The disappearance of Yves Emmanuel Payne and Laurent Hanas. On December 22nd, 1991, at around 10 PM, a speeding car was pulled over by Officer Balanga along a highway that led to the local marina in Goose Creek, South Carolina. Inside the car were 3 men, and Balanga asked for their license and registration, but no one responded. After repeating the request, the man in the back seat said something in a foreign language to the driver that prompted him to hand over his papers. After checking the information, the officer told them to be on their way and to drive carefully, but again he received no response. The next day, while reading...
Well, it sounds as if they didn't really know English, or at least one person did and the others didn't, because there had to be like a translator. So far it doesn't seem that mysterious or whatever.
In the newspaper, Balanga was shocked to see photos of the 2 men he had pulled over the previous night. According to the paper, they were missing French sailors, 37-year-old Yves
Oh, that's why they didn't understand. They're French sailors.
Emmanuel Payne, and 25-year-old Laurent Hanaz, who had recently been the focus of an intense search by the United States Coast Guard. The report stated that the two sailors had been hired to deliver a French-made sailboat to its new owners. The vessel was a state-of-the-art catamaran worth nearly $250,000 and was the most sophisticated craft of its kind. It was fitted with high-tech navigational equipment, and its unique structure made it virtually unsinkable and undetectable to radar. The sailors' planned voyage was 2,500 miles from Maryland to the West Indies, but when the vessel failed to arrive as scheduled, the Coast Guard was notified. They searched for over 2 weeks, but there were no sightings of the boat along its sea course.
Did the police officer tell the Coast Guard that he pulled them over?
Although strangely, the boat had been spotted a number of times, several miles off course, in what is known.
Oh, was this wait, so when they got pulled over, was this before they left for their journey?
As the Intracoastal Waterway, a protected inland passage that stretches thousands of miles from New England through Florida. It was a complete mystery what the boat was doing there. Further investigations revealed that a third man had also been spotted on the catamaran, and the mysterious third passenger was sighted by at least 5 different witnesses along the waterway.
So it could have been the third person in the car that got pulled over, right?
This led to speculation that perhaps one or both of the Frenchmen had been involved in stealing the boat.
That makes sense. The thing's worth, what, $250,000? How much would they get paid to deliver it? Like, maybe a couple thousand? You know, $250,000, that's a lot more than a couple thousand, so maybe they decide to steal the boat. It's very highly possible.
Although their families and friends refused to accept that theory, claiming they would never be involved in anything criminal, and suggested, instead, that the third man could have commandeered the boat and forced the 2 men to sail it. Others suggest that maybe they unintentionally sailed into Cuban waters and are being held in a Cuban prison, although this seems unlikely. Whatever the theories, Yves Emmanuel Payne and Laurent Hanaz are still missing, and no sign of them or the catamaran have ever been found.
If they were on the water and the catamaran did manage to, like, tip over or something, and then maybe it sunk, and if they were out far from land, the people could have just drowned or something.
However, perhaps the biggest mystery of all is what were they doing in a car with an unknown man weeks after they had been reported missing?
Oh, this was weeks after? I thought this was like the day before they were reported missing. Oh, weeks after. So maybe they got away with stealing the boat, and now they were just enjoying the money that they made from it or something, you know? Or something like that. Maybe they did get away with whatever they're doing. Because if it was them that got pulled over, then they obviously didn't drown, which means they obviously survived. So it seems kind of like they would do that intentionally. And the fact that they didn't, you know, tell anyone where they were kind of makes me think that they were definitely doing something notorious, or I don't know if that's the right word, but it makes it seem like they intentionally were trying to hide or something like that.
Is it possible that they were being held against their will? Was their captor the man in the back of the car that Officer Balanga pulled over? Or could they have fooled anyone and made off with $250,000 worth of a yacht? What do you think?
I don't know. It's weird. But why would they be captives? And this is weeks later, right? If they were captives, the guy keeping them captive will not have them in a car with him weeks after. Like, they'd probably be locked up in a basement or something if they were captives, right? Because if it's weeks later, the people would have had many times or opportunities to escape. So I don't think they're held captive.
Blue whales. We can't wait to talk about these guys, and we're probably going to do a documentary and some other videos on them because they're so fascinating. You probably won't believe this, but one of the biggest ocean mysteries is the blue whale, and it's remarkable that the largest animal on Earth can be so mysterious. We actually know more about the moon than we do about these. These spectacular giants of the sea inhabit most of the world's major oceans and are the largest animal to ever live on Earth, even larger than dinosaurs.
What about the megalodon? Is that the shark? That's a big shark? You know, is a megalodon comparable to this? Do we know?
And we have the privilege of sharing the planet with them. Just to give you a quick idea of how huge they are.
Alright, I'm gonna skip the whale one. I mean, it wasn't really a mystery or anything, so I'm gonna skip it. I don't think it belongs in here, but I guess they included it to get to 5 most mysterious. Otherwise, it would have just been 4, maybe.
Daedalus sea serpent.
Oh, now we're talking!
The tales of monster sea serpents spotted by delirious sailors during their voyages across the sea. Although in reality, it's likely many of these sightings are the result of overactive imaginations, drunkenness, or hallucinations. However, there was one incident involving the sea serpent that was considerably more credible than the others.
I tend to believe that the sea serpents or whatever probably do exist, or have in the past. Maybe not now. But 95% of the ocean is undiscovered, so we don't know what really is in the ocean at all. And 2, the sea serpents or whatever have been reported all throughout history, right? So it's not as if just one person has a hallucination, and it's through a long period of time. So obviously, they most likely did exist. At some point, maybe not now, but at some point they probably did exist. It's like the giant squids. It's only recently that we've been able to capture like pictures of them, and they were rumored for a long time. So who knows what else could be in the ocean that it's rumored to exist, but we don't think it exists. But eventually we might end up getting pictures or whatever, or proof of them.
It happened in 1848 and was witnessed by the crew of the British naval vessel Daedalus. And for years, the case has remained one of the most famous and puzzling maritime mysteries of all time. On August the 6th, 1848, at around 5 PM, the HMS Daedalus encountered what its captain, P. McQuay, described as an enormous sea serpent that was at least 60 feet long. The sighting occurred in the South Atlantic, around 300 miles from the coast of present-day Namibia.
That must be a small ship if that thing is 60 feet long. I mean, how wide is that face? It looks like 200 feet wide from that picture.
When the crew returned to shore, McQuay wrote a report and oversaw 3 professional drawings that depicted what he observed. And these were published in the Times newspaper and caused a bit of a controversy. An expert from the diary of another witness, Lieutenant E.A. Drummond, was also published that corroborated the...
Is this one of the pictures? Or is this like just a random picture? Because this face looks kind of cute. It looks like a duck's head almost.
Incident. And another similar account was given by an anonymous officer who also witnessed the creature. This is what Captain McQuay wrote in his report. On our attention being called to the object, it was discovered to be an enormous serpent with head and shoulders kept about 4 feet constantly above the surface of the water. And as nearly as we could approximate, by comparing it with the length of what our main topsail yard would show in the water, there was at the very least 60 feet of the animal at sea level, no portion of which was to our
Oh, so this is probably what it looks like.
perception used in propelling it through the water, either by vertical.
Yeah, here's an actual picture. Head of sea serpent seen by captain. Yes, and it's not just like one person. He had other people that were witnesses of it. It's not like he was just hallucinating himself. You had a bunch of other people see it too, and they witness for you. Then it's most likely that he wasn't just hallucinating, tripping some balls.
Or horizontal undulation. It passed rapidly, but so close under our lee quarter, that had it been a man of my acquaintance, I should easily have recognised his features with the naked eye, and I did not, neither in approaching the ship or after it had passed our wake, deviate in the slightest degree from its course to the SW, which had held on at peace from 12 to 15 miles per hour, apparently on some determined purpose. The diameter of the serpent was about 15 or 16 inches behind the head, which was, without any doubt, that of a snake. And it was never, during the 20 minutes that I continued in sight of our glasses, once below the surface of the water. Its colour dark brown, with yellowish white about the throat. It had no fins, but something like a mane of a horse, or rather a bunch of seaweed washed about its back. It was seen by the quartermaster, the boatswain's mate, and the man at the wheel, in addition to myself and...
So the story's corroborated by 3 other people. So I don't think they'd be lying. Especially if it's just like, if they have nothing to gain from it, there's just no reason for them to lie.
Officers above mentioned. Suggestions as to the identity of the entity ranged from a land snake swimming at sea to a surviving plesiosaur. However, it wasn't until 1997.
Yeah, it could be like one of these things that survived. I mean, if 95% of the ocean's undiscovered, and we know these things did exist at one point, why can't they exist now when we just not know about them? Especially with so much of the ocean that is undiscovered.
That a very different drawing was released by a relative of Lieutenant Drummond. The never-seen-before drawing from his diary showed a slightly less dramatic image of the creature witnessed by the crew, and has provided important clues about what the serpent might be. The drawing shows what many believe is not a serpent at all, but a sei whale, a species of baleen whale that is huge, and the third largest after the blue whale, which can reach lengths of up to 64 feet. It's an
I don't think it would be a whale. If you're a sailor, you probably see whales a lot. You would know any type. You would know what a whale looks like. If you're a sailor, you are very familiar with what whales are, what they look like. Even if you see a whale that you don't know the exact type, you would still know, oh, that's still a whale.
easy mistake to make, as the sei has a flat triangular upper head and is reptilian in appearance and could easily be mistaken for the head of a snake.
But it still looks like a whale. I don't see how you could mistake that as a snake. Especially as a sailor, you would know what whales look like. That doesn't look like a snake. It looks like a whale.
If you look at the sei whale feeding at the surface with its mouth open, it does look a little like the drawings. So is it possible this enduring sea serpent mystery is solved? Or is this still an unsolved ocean mystery? The crew of that boat all died thinking they had seen a sea serpent.
See, it could be the whale. I don't think it is. I really don't think it is. One, because you had a whole bunch of people agreeing upon what they saw. Two, you're sailors. You would know what a whale looks like. Even a variation of a type of a whale, you'd still be like, oh, that's still a whale. I don't know what type of whale, but that's still a whale. This thing looks like a whale.
But what do you think?
See, that's an interesting one. I really like that one. But I do not think it's a whale they saw. As I've stated, you're a freaking sailor. You know what a whale looks like. And you have a whole bunch of people corroborating what they saw. I think it's most likely not a whale.
The cursed ghost ship of Fiji. The MV Jovita was a luxury yacht constructed in 1931 for movie director Roland West. At the time, the boat was unique. It had a completely
Is that a yacht? That doesn't look like a yacht. Looks like a freaking little houseboat.
wooden hull and was diesel powered, and was deemed to be unsinkable due to its solid wood construction, which made it extremely
As soon as you deem something unsinkable, you know you're in for trouble.
buoyant. West eventually sold the vessel in 1936 to a Milton E. Beacon, and after making numerous trips to Mexico, it was acquired by the US Navy in 1941.
What? Why would the Navy want... what? This doesn't make any sense.
The Navy reconfigured the vessel and transformed it into patrol boat YP-108.
Oh. Wanted it to be a patrol boat. That's weird. Do you think the Navy would just have a certain manufacturer that they would get boats from instead of just buying them like second hand? That's weird.
Its duties during this time mostly consisted of patrolling the island of Hawaii until the end of World War II. After the war ended, the vessel was decommissioned and sold. Over the next few years, the MV Jovita changed hands several times until it ended up with a British-born sailor living in Samoa by the name of Captain Thomas H. Miller, who used it as a fishing charter and passenger boat.
Wait, is this what it looks like? Or was the other picture what it looks like? Because this looks a lot more like a ship the Navy would buy. No, but these two look exactly the same. This is like a copy and paste of this ship. I don't know. I don't think these pictures have anything to do with the boat.
On October the 3rd, 1955, the MV Jovita embarked on a routine merchant passenger run from the Samoan capital of Apia to the Tokelau Islands. On board were 25 passengers and crew, as well as 4 tons of cargo. That included medical supplies, timber, empty oil drums, and various foodstuffs. Prior to the trip, the ship had various setbacks.
So, I want to know what the ship looks like, because I'm really confused. The first picture you showed looks like a little houseboat or something. And it did not look like this at all. If this is what the actual boat looks like, or the previous picture, then I can see why the Navy would buy it, and I can see why it's used for patrolling or whatever. So I'm kind of confused. I wish I had a good image of what it looks like to get my head around it.
Including the failure of its port engine clutch. But despite this not being properly repaired, the ship sailed away with only one working engine. Interestingly, this wasn't the first time bad luck had fallen the MV Jovita. During its days in the Navy, it had run aground and sustained heavy damage, and the boat had been considered unlucky amongst superstitious sailors.
What, because it ran aground? That's why? I mean, ships run aground. Friggin' the ground can be really shallow at points, and ships will hit it. No big deal. But and the fact that they went out on one engine instead of getting both them fixed, that's their fault. It's not the boat's fault. You gotta fix both engines. That's just a recipe for disaster.
The trip was expected to take 2 days, but when the ship didn't arrive on time, it was initially thought it had been slowed down by the loss of one of its engines.
If you have one engine and you lose another engine, you're in trouble.
But as the days stretched into weeks, the worst was feared, and the Royal New Zealand Air Force conducted
I assume this is what the boat has to look like, because you showed so many pictures of like this type of boat.
an extensive search and rescue operation. However, despite scouring nearly 100,000 square miles of ocean, not a trace was found of the MV Jovita. Then, almost a month later, on November the 10th, 1955, the captain of merchant vessel Tuvalu
This is an actual image of it, 1955, so it could be an actual image of it.
spotted the missing Jovita off of the Fiji island of Vanua Levu. The boat was around 600 miles off course. As the Tuvalu approached, it was obvious there was no one aboard. The MV Jovita was floating aimlessly and listing heavily. When investigators boarded the ship, they discovered all the cargo was gone except the oil drums. The ship's 3 lifeboats were also missing, and the vessel was clearly in a bad way,
So it sounds like the people abandoned ship at some point.
with smashed windows and a hole in its hull that had led to heavy flooding of the lower deck.
Exactly, it sounds like they just abandoned ship.
But investigators were baffled by some of the things they found. All of the lights in the cabins were on, as were the navigational lights, and all of the electrical clocks on board had stopped at 10:25, possibly due to the ship's generators cutting out at the time. The radio was functioning and was set to an international distress channel, although it appeared that the distress signal had never been sent. In the engine room, the starboard engine had been covered with mattresses, perhaps to try and plug a leak. The bilge pump was clogged up, and an auxiliary pump was rigged up but not connected to a power source. They also found a medical bag filled with bloodied bandages.
Sounds like things went downhill at some point, and maybe they were off course to a point where they couldn't send an emergency signal or something like that, and then they just decided to abandon ship because the hull was taking in water. Now, if they did decide to abandon ship, the actual lifeboats or boats that they went in could have sunk. If there was like a bad storm and it was really wavy, they could have just sunk and drowned everyone.
Ship's logbook and navigational equipment was all missing, as well as several firearms that Captain Miller had kept on board. An inquiry was launched into the mysterious circumstances, but little was found to answer the question of what had happened, apart from the obvious damage to the ship and the flooding. Although it was revealed that Captain Miller had been transporting passengers with an elapsed license, and that there was not enough lifeboats to accommodate everyone on board, meaning that many of them almost certainly took to the water in life vests. In the end, the official inquiry deemed the disappearances as inexplicable. So just what happened to the 20...
This picture does not look anything like the other pictures. This boat looks nothing like the other boats. This looks like a boat that, it would be like a little houseboat or something, right? But it looks like this picture is relevant to the story. It doesn't make any sense. How could you fit 3 lifeboats on this? I don't see that being a thing.
25 people on board.
And 25 people. You can't fit 25 people on something like this. This doesn't make sense.
Well, one of the biggest mysteries is why they abandoned ship. After all, the MV Jovita was unsinkable, and proved that by being found still afloat. Listing or not, the Jovita was essentially still completely seaworthy. There was also still plenty of food and water on board. Another mystery is why the ship did not send out a distress signal when the equipment on board was in working order. Over the years, there have been many theories, and one enduring thought is that Captain Miller was killed or injured and was unable to command the ship, leaving the crew and passengers panicked in the face of the flooding, and therefore abandoning ship.
Very possible something like that happened. I was just gonna suggest that someone went crazy and like tried to take over the ship, and people didn't know what to do, so they just abandoned ship. And then when the ship managed to get close to land, whoever took control of the ship just abandoned ship so that they wouldn't have to be responsible for answering questions regarding, where everyone went. That's also possible.
It was revealed that Miller had a volatile relationship with his first mate, Chuck Simpson, and the two often fell out. They may have come to blows, and Miller was seriously injured or even killed. This may explain the bloodied bandages found in the medical kit. Another idea is that the ship was attacked by some outside force, possibly pirates, that caused the crew and passengers to flee the ship in a hurry.
It's weird that, even just mentioning pirates, but, I think technically pirates are still going good and strong, but they aren't, you know, riding around with the Jolly Roger or whatever. Like pirates nowadays, instead of, you know, doing what pirates used to do, nowadays they just like steal friggin' cargo ships and whatnot. Like I remember seeing a video on YouTube of security guards on like one of those ships that has like cargo and stuff, and the pirates were coming after them, and they're out there with their machine guns just shooting at the pirates.
Although this seems very unlikely, as there was nothing on board that would be any value to pirates. Another theory is that the ship was captured by a Soviet submarine, and the crew and passengers were kidnapped. There was even speculation that there were still secret Japanese forces operating in the Pacific after World War II, perhaps unaware that the war had ended, and that these forces had set their sights on the boat. Of course, there are those that think the disappearances are likened to alien abductions or
Yeah, no, that ain't it.
some other unknown force. However, in a strange twist of the story, in the years following the incident, it was reported that Captain Miller had been spotted alive in Singapore, the West Indies and Honolulu, promoting claims of an attempted insurance fraud. Although none of these claims have been proven.
He was spotted alive in all those parts. Man, Captain Miller gets around.
The sad reality is that if the passengers and crew were forced off the boat for whatever reason and took to the waters in life vests,
They most likely drowned.
that they either drowned or were eaten by sharks one by one.
Yeah.
But not one single piece of evidence has ever been found to suggest that. So ultimately, we may never know what happened to the 25 people who felt the need to abandon a fully stocked, unsinkable ship and take to the sea that could be very likely their final resting place.
Well, obviously something made them, right? I mean, I don't think they'd willingly, oh, let's just jump off this ship into the ocean, you know. Obviously something happened that made them like, yeah, the best opportunity or best option right now is to leave the ship. So something obviously happened. Whether it be some maniac took control of the ship and the people just like, yeah, we gotta get out of here. Or as suggested, maybe the captain got killed and then the people didn't know what to do and the ship was like, there's water coming in, so people were freaking out, so maybe they decided to leave. That's also possible. It's also possible to believe that some country took everyone captive. Anyway, I hope you guys liked this video. I think it was actually really cool. It was very mysterious and I enjoyed it. It was a nice little twist from paranormal stuff. But yeah, I kind of like to see more of this stuff in the future. But yeah, if you guys like this, make sure you give it a thumbs up if you're new. And subscribe to the family. Make sure you guys go subscribe to Top 5s. That link's in the description. And with that being said, I'll see you guys next time. Boop.